Hello and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. Today my guest is Stepanka Kuralova, who is speaking to me all the way from England, and she is a trained hypnotherapist. And today we talk about her journey into hypnotherapy, how it changed and transformed her life, how hypnosis can be used to help with our self-esteem, to help with anxieties, fears, phobias, and so much more. And she really debunks a lot of myths that people have about hypnosis. One thing that I really didn't realize is that a lot of hypnotherapists are trained either in past life regressions and moving into the past or in the present and the future. And so Stepanka is focused on the present and the future, and she brings so much wisdom into this podcast. So I really hope that you'll enjoy today's episode, have some takeaways about hypnosis and how it can be transformational to our well-being. And please, if you're enjoying these podcasts, take a moment to give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hello, Stepanka. I'm so excited to have you today on the Connected Community Podcast.
Hi, Nikki. Thank you so much for having me.
And especially because you're in England and you've had a busy day and this is the end of your day. So I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. I'm really excited for our conversation because I feel like you have some incredible questions and we're going to dive quite deep.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we're going to talk about hypnotherapy. And I realized when we talked in the beginning that there's a lot of misconceptions about hypnotherapy, but I had a bunch too. And so I'd love to break those myths. But let's begin with how you got interested in this topic and how you started to dive into hypnotherapy.
Thank you. And yes, it definitely is one of those modalities and therapy approaches that is surrounded by so many myths and misconceptions. And personally, I experienced hypnosis at quite a young age. I was about 18 or 19 when I had my first experience, and it was very transformational. It gave me very quick results, and honestly, it sounds like a cliche, but it did change my life. It completely did change the direction my life was headed in, because I was so blown away by how it made me feel, by how it impacted my health in so many positive ways, that I actually felt like I could no longer relate to the subjects I was studying at university at that age. I wanted to know more about what else is possible for us as humans. Like, what else do we not know about our bodies and our subconscious mind? How can I teach other people how to do this? So at that age, I was a first year university student, and I was experiencing all of these unusual health symptoms, such as high fevers. I literally had high fever on and off for weeks on. I had various different stomach problems. I would be sick after everything I've eaten, and that kept going on for weeks as well. And once my doctor wasn't able to identify any actual physiological or biological issues or problems in my body, it really did make me think whether there was something else I could do. And by mistake, I ended up at this yoga class. I don't think it was a mistake. I think that was just a beautiful divine synchronicity. I ended up at this yoga class where the teacher shared a hypnotic relaxation technique with us. Once the class wrapped up, she had a suggestion if anyone had more time, we could stay and listen to this special recording she had. And I had a profound experience right away. I felt so relaxed, so present in my body like I've never felt. And there was this voice in my head just telling me like, Stepanka, pay attention. This is such an important technique. And I did, and I went back home and I repeated the same process every single day for a week. And all of a sudden, all of these health problems simply disappeared. And it blew
Wow.
me away so much.
Mm-hmm.
I overall started feeling more confident. I was even more decisive. Like, I definitely saw how carving out 10 minutes in the morning and sometimes even 10 minutes in the evening, how much it impacted me. Obviously, the
Wow.
side effect for me was that all of a sudden I was so interested in all of this and I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
know more about the subconscious mind. I really wanted to learn more about how we can improve our lives and
Mm-hmm.
increase our well-being. So that's how it all started.
Yeah. That's interesting because when we initially talked, you didn't tell me it was 10 minutes, and that's amazing. So you were doing it 10 minutes once or twice a day and had this profound impact. Because I think when we think of hypnosis, we think of at least an hour of sitting in a chair.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, there obviously are different techniques and
Mm-hmm.
the length might vary, but
Mm-hmm.
this was actually a super simple hypnotic technique, very simple, very
Yeah.
basic. And these days, this would actually be maybe just an aspect of a technique. And
Mm-hmm.
there might be more to a technique, but it obviously was enough for what I was going through. And looking back, I definitely was struggling with psychosomatical health problems. It was stress related, it was anxiety related. I felt like an imposter at university. I literally felt like I'm not smart enough, like I don't belong here, I shouldn't be here, even though
Yeah.
I took entrance exams and I was in the top 5. And still, my
Mm-hmm.
brain would not accept the fact that I belonged and I was smart enough. I was constantly like frightened almost that someone would find me out. Like, very, very
Yeah.
soon, someone would find out like I'm not smart enough to be here.
Yeah. And I think that imposter syndrome is real. I think everyone experiences that at least sometime in their life, in their
Yeah.
career. Yeah. Wow. And so another thing I didn't realize was that there's specialties within hypnosis. I kind of thought it was this broad, overarching, like if you can do hypnosis, you can do hypnosis for everything. But you were saying that some people go into past life regression and that's their specialty, and some people dive into the future. And I thought that was super fascinating. So can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yes, I feel this is actually one of the misconceptions that I never hear anyone talk about, because
Mm-hmm.
hypnosis is being treated as this one thing, one
Mm-hmm.
technique. But there is
Yeah.
so many different techniques within hypnotherapy. There is so many different approaches one could have to treating an issue. And while there, of course, are rules and you can study and you can learn all of those things, it also still depends on the client that's in front of you. It is my job to even find out about what works for them. In terms of, some people easily visualize things, while others find it so difficult and frustrating that they might actually have an unpleasant experience if I was trying to force them imagine
Yeah.
something they can't. And then, there should be a different approach. And I feel like you and I opened up a few interesting topics when we connected first, and I want to come back to one of the things as well. But like, not everyone can even lie down and be in a still
Mm-hmm.
position for an hour long. Like session for an hour long session that could be painful if you've had a spinal injury, right? So there is just so many different approaches, techniques, but it always depends on the person who's sitting in front of you. And you will find people, hypnotherapists, that specialize, like you said, yourself, on past life regression. You will
Mm-hmm.
have people who generally focus more on regression, which means taking you to a past memory, to a past experience, whether it's in this lifetime or maybe different lifetimes, maybe even different dimensions or planes. Like, people have various different approaches to how you can heal an issue, how you can overcome something. And I find it, this happens a lot, that people think that hypnosis equals regression as well,
Mm-hmm.
that it's usually about going to the past. And it could be one of the approaches, but there is so many more, and it might not even be the right approach for particular issues, for certain types of people. It might not be something that the hypnotherapist doesn't even enjoy or maybe doesn't believe in as much. And then, like you said yourself, you could have techniques that very much focus on behavior or thinking. So cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy is very much a thing. And then you're actually learning to reprogram your thoughts, think differently about your current experience, about your body, almost like shifting your perspective, but on a deeper level. And I'm sure maybe you have experienced this yourself. Maybe the listeners can relate, but our thoughts, they impact how we feel. They impact whether you are relaxed, whether your shoulders are relaxed and your belly is, nice and relaxed and you have softened in general, or whether you're thinking about that upcoming meeting and how for sure you're gonna mess up again, and without even knowing, you might be clenching your fist, you might be tensing your belly, your shoulders might rise all the way up to your ears, and nothing changed in your external environment, nothing changed in your life. It's only your thoughts that have changed. And there is a direct link between your thoughts and your body, and then it's a feedback loop. Then the body, because there is tension, will impact those thoughts, and there will be even more tension. And so cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy will be focusing on being in charge of your thoughts, changing the way you think about a particular scenario that could apply even to a phobia or a deeper fear, let's say public speaking, stage fright, and the same behavior. So in your head, in hypnosis, you could teach your body to respond differently, which I personally think is a brilliant skill. It's a really great skill to have if you can reprogram how you behave leading up to a meeting or a big presentation or an important conversation with your partner that you've been avoiding for months on.
Yeah. What if there's something, because I know so many women struggle with this, where you have body image issues and we're really hard on ourselves? Is that something that can be reprogrammed? And do you need to know the root of the origin of where that began?
Mm. So this actually is something I pretty much started with. When I started supporting clients, I very much was focusing on self-esteem, self-confidence, self-love, body acceptance, and anxiety, because that's where I had struggled many years ago. That's where my own healing journey started, because I had over the years so many different health problems, and at times it was really hard to accept my body and have any kind of relationship with my body. And there are particular techniques I very much like when it comes to body dysmorphia and being able to love and accept your body. And I would say, in my experience, like I said, maybe another hypnotherapist would have a different approach. But with these sort of things, I very much worked with techniques that focus on the present moment rather than taking them into their past or finding the root cause. Actually, what can I start changing right away? And I very much recommend that you work with someone long-term, and I work with clients for more than one session for sure. And of course, if I see there is an important connection, then we might address it. But if I'm starting with someone, I will personally usually stay away from regression or even any techniques that might open something up for you. I will first empower the client. And I feel like the present and future focused technique and techniques can really make you feel like you've already made a difference. And you walk away from that first session or from that first experience or conversation already feeling empowered and oh, I can make a difference. I find it very much more empowering because hypnosis in general is not about me being special. It's not about a hypnotherapist being a magician or a wizard. It's not like we know something other people don't. It very much comes from within. And that's why I chose hypnotherapy as my main like therapy modality, is because it's the power is not in my hands. It's within that client. You are tapping into your own inner resources. You can learn different techniques. I have clients that have their favorite techniques I taught them, and they will take themselves through that process. And eventually, based on the research we've had, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. It is you giving yourself those suggestions. It is you taking yourself through a visualization. And I really love it because I don't want to create a codependent relationship with clients. I want them to feel really empowered. And if all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, even just teaching that my client, like telling them this is what's happening, it feels good. It's not like they think like, oh, it's only thanks to Stepanka. Right? It's actually about uncovering your own hidden resources.
So with the example of somebody that has body dysmorphia or self-esteem issues around their body image, what would be a path that you would take and lead them down with hypnosis to break that?
So depending on how it shows up in their life, I would choose the right technique. Like, what does it look like? That's why it's really important to speak to your client and find out when it plays up the most. Is there something that is triggering those thoughts? Are there moments when you actually don't feel it? Why is that? What's the difference? It could be a particular person that triggers a reaction. It could be an environment. It could be a topic. It could be that there is different times when you spiral a lot more than on other occasions. So I really feel like it all depends on that. I don't feel like it would be good of me to like share one technique or what I would do, because it all depends on how it shows up in your life, how the client describes it to me, what's the language they are using, and what it feels like in their body. And also, if I have them close their eyes and just imagine something basic, what does it look like? Can they actually do it? How severe is that relationship with their body? Like, can they actually tap in and tune in, or does that feel too difficult? You could have clients that would find it hard to place their hand on their heart because touching themselves doesn't feel relaxing, or it doesn't feel safe. Maybe they don't actually feel safe in their bodies, and then me guiding them to go deeper with it into their body might not be the right first approach. But visualizing being somewhere away, maybe on a relaxing beach or in the middle of a rainforest, depending on what they resonate with, might be an easier approach to get started.
Yeah. So is it determining what the trigger is and then moving forward in scenarios where the trigger might come up and reprogramming the mind to be calm or in a different state going into those triggers?
That would definitely be a technique, one I very much like, but I can't really tell you if that would be one of the first techniques I would take this client into, whether there might be some sort of a preparation. It also depends on how big that fear or anxiety is, how much it's limiting them. And, that's why I always have them to assess each situation on a scale from 1 to 10, how difficult, how painful it is, because then you also don't want to re-traumatize someone. You don't want to force them to do a technique they might not be ready for. So it's really hard for me to give like a specific step by step or like a schedule of what sort of sessions I might do, because it very much differs and depends. But with self-esteem, self-love, body acceptance, all of that, it could potentially be a technique. The one you mentioned, when we actually reprogram how the body responds, how the mind responds, and how our emotions respond in such a future scenario. But this very much is like one of my go-to techniques for fears, phobias, panic attacks, overall any like blocks in terms of like I really fear this could happen, or I sabotage myself every time I experience XYZ. Okay, let's
Yeah.
work with that. Let's reprogram how you respond to such a scenario, and then maybe a phobia of some sorts, or a stage fright, or fear of sleeping in hotels could be resolved. Like I've done so many different techniques,
Yeah.
or covered so many issues with this particular technique, such as fear of dentists, fear of injections, procedures, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. But I love this because it's showing me how vast the techniques are. And within that, there's so many different avenues and so many different pathways and so many different techniques. And so I think that is another misconception, is that there's like a one size fits
Yeah.
all, like there's this one technique and you do that technique over and over again. And so that's kind of
You
breaking
totally
that myth for
could
me.
do the same technique over and over again, and there's nothing wrong with it. But yeah, like you said, it's not like there is one overarching hypnosis, and you know, everything can be treated with it. There, of
Yeah.
course, are similarities, and there is steps I take with almost every technique, but
Yeah.
there is very much different approaches, and
Mhm.
within that, there is also like even like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, could be used in combination with hypnosis. There is an overlap as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we talked about that, how not everybody can access hypnosis in the same way. So I remember mentioning to you that I'm not visual. And so for me to go down a visual simulation would be pretty tricky, and it would probably stress me out a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's ways to go into the body. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that, because I think some people think that they can't be hypnotized, or maybe they think that they'll be hypnotized and they'll have
Mm-hmm.
no control in there, or they'll
Mm-hmm.
get stuck in it.
Mm-hmm.
So can we talk about those few things?
Absolutely. Why don't I start with a brief explanation of what hypnosis is?
Yes.
And then we will move from there. So hypnosis is actually a very natural state of human mind. It is accessible to all of us. We have all experienced hypnosis before, and it happens to us all the time. And I really feel like that's such an important place to start in, because
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden you realize, oh, it's not anything completely new. Like my mind already knows how to do it. And this can take a lot of pressure of you, because I find sometimes people can have almost like a performance anxiety because they want to
Mm-hmm.
do really well. They might have a preconceived idea of what hypnosis needs to look like because it has been misrepresented in the entertainment industry. Honestly, the other day there was an ad on TV about this like new series or program, and it was like, oh, this person share their deepest secret in hypnosis and now we need to investigate it, or something along the lines of
Oh
that. And
gosh.
it's really silly. Or you might have seen TV shows where someone committed a murder because they were hypnotized and programmed to do so. Or people have seen stage hypnosis, whether in person
Mm-hmm.
or on TV, when someone is being made fun of. They might dance like a chicken. They might reveal their deepest secrets, get naked in front of people. And I personally think stage hypnosis is brilliant because it's very smart, and it's not like they fake anything. It's not like they have fake actors in the audience. Maybe that's happened also, I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
there is principles they follow. They know who's the right person to choose. So it's not like it's cheating, but it's fun. It's got a total
Yeah.
different energy than therapeutic hypnosis. And that's where your success journey starts. Your hypnotherapist needs to set you up for success. They need to
Mm-hmm.
help you have the right expectations, because I feel many people will have a hypnotic experience with someone and they will feel like, oh, I didn't feel anything special. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel magical. I feel like maybe it didn't work on me. Maybe I cannot be hypnotized. And I've spoken to so many people who had this experience when they
Yeah.
came and shared with me like, oh, that's so cool, but I actually already know about myself. I cannot be hypnotized. And I'm usually very curious and I want to know more. And I find that sometimes people will just say it like, oh, maybe you are one of the 10% of population that cannot be hypnotized. And that makes you feel like, oh, I'm left out and I can't do this. When in fact, hypnosis can feel very different. But going back to what hypnosis is, it's a receptive state of your mind. It's when you're open to suggestions. It is a state of focused attention. And think of all the moments when you were maybe reading a book and you were fully focusing on that, and someone walks into the room and is like, Nikki, what did you want to have for dinner? And you're like, yeah, sounds good. Because you're just enjoying it so much and you're tuning out everything else. Or maybe that happened to you when you were watching TV and someone is trying to have a conversation with you, but you're really enjoying what you're looking at, what you're watching. Or maybe someone plays like, is it PlayStation? Whatever these things are called. Like, again, that's a very focused state. The same thing can happen to you when you're having a drink in a restaurant with a friend. Let's say the environment is very loud and noisy, but your friend looks at you and says like, Nikki, I need to tell you something. There is something that's been on my mind. When your friend says it, you'll focus on them. And in that very moment, all of the noises, all of the other conversations happening around you, you will simply tune them out and you will be listening to your friend. But then, if you wanted to shift your focus, you totally could, and you could eavesdrop on the couple next to you, having a romantic conversation about their beautiful evening. Like, we have the ability to move our focused attention from one place to another. And all of a sudden you hear the music if you want. You become aware of all the buzzing noises in that restaurant. And then once again, you can focus and tune the rest out. So this is a hypnotic state. And we use it in hypnosis, in therapeutic hypnosis, to tune out other things and really help you focus on something and teach your body a new way of responding, relax your nervous system, work on new ways of thinking, feeling, maybe help you actually drop from your mind, so to speak, down into your body if you have a tendency to overthink. And why hypnosis can be sometimes much easier for people than maybe like an open, non-guided meditation is because you are being given steps to follow. So even if your mind wants to focus on something else, there is that voice that will bring you back and will guide you. So that can be really helpful. And another misconception is like you need to feel something special, or like hypnosis needs to feel like this out of body experience, or it needs to feel like I need to be mind blown. And you totally might be. You might be mind blown. You might have a really deep experience. You might feel like you've left your body, or the exact opposite, that you were more present than ever before. But there will also be techniques and issues you might be exploring that actually don't even require such a thing, and maybe that's not even the right approach to it. So there was this study done, and I feel like that's the one you and I chatted about, by Eva Banya at a Hungarian university. It wasn't just her, there was like a few colleagues who did this hypnosis experience, and they had a bunch of participants and they guided them into hypnosis, and they measured their brain activity. And afterwards they had interviews with them and asked them how deeply they went, did they feel like it worked, were they able to be hypnotized. And it was so interesting because it really gave us a deep insight into how subjective hypnosis is, how we all perceive it differently, how we all might have a different experience. But also that some people were like, oh my gosh, I went so deep. It was transformational. Like, wow, I really went super deep. And the brain activity chat would show no change.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Huh.
then the opposite would happen also. People were like, no, it didn't work on me. Like nothing happened. Honestly, I noticed no change whatsoever. And
Mm-hmm.
the machine that measured their brain activity would show that there was a significant change.
Huh.
So it's
And
really,
they all actually were successfully hypnotized.
well, that's what we've learned from this. It's so subjective. We
Wow.
can't actually even make a direct correlation between your brain activity, what's being shown by
Mm-hmm.
an instrument, by a machine, and how you perceived it. But really, this is a
Mm-hmm.
reassuring finding because it takes the
Yeah.
pressure of you. You're like, oh, I don't have to have this like mental crazy experience to
Right.
get results. And very much another study, and this was done in Germany, I think it's the University of Vienna. But what they did is they guided participants into hypnosis and they had them walk on a treadmill instead of
Mm-hmm.
having them lie down, which is a
Yeah.
very common misconception that you've got to be lying down, you've got to be in a reclining chair, ideally wrapped up in a blanket and completely out of it, or fall asleep completely, when in fact their brain activity showed that they were still able to maintain the same state while walking on the treadmill. And they were also able to take themselves into the technique again while walking, which makes sense because we have top
Mm-hmm.
athletes using hypnosis for performance
Wow.
purposes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You picture the person sitting on the couch
Yeah.
or
And
lying
like
down on the
I don't
couch.
even have my clients lying down. Like I actually prefer when they sit in an upright position
Yeah.
in a chair because you don't want them to fall asleep, because hypnosis is actually
Mm-hmm.
more effective when you are aware of what is happening, what's being said.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you are an active participant here. It's not like
Yeah.
you drifted off, you fell asleep, and then you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't know what happened. There could still
Yeah.
be benefits, but actually, we now know it's much more beneficial if you
Mm-hmm.
are aware, you're not asleep, and you
Yeah.
are actively taking part.
Yeah. Somebody once told me that if you know how sometimes you drive and you kind of lose 20 minutes of time driving, like you're just kind of somewhere else, that was a hypnotic state too, where you're alert and you're driving and you're active and engaged, but your brain has gone into that hypnotic state. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Maybe when you are learning to drive, like I don't know how about you, but we often hear drive manual. And then you need to learn how to shift the gear stick, right?
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
remember learning to drive for the first time, and I was like, how am I ever gonna have a conversation
Yeah.
while
Yeah.
driving? How am I ever
Yeah.
gonna like focus on anything else but on changing the gears?
Yeah.
Focusing at things in front of me, like driving the car into the right place, and then you get used to it, and before you
Yeah.
know it, you can have a conversation, and if it's the same route you are used to, you might
Yeah.
not even pay attention at things such as the buildings around you. Before you know it, you will arrive at your workplace and you don't even remember driving past this shopping mall, driving past the hospital, and you're like, oh, I'm already
Yeah.
here. What's happened?
Yeah. 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 Interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's that myth too that, and you touched on it a little bit, but that the hypnotherapist can make us do things that we wouldn't normally do. And that's not the case, right?
Yes,
We won't do anything that's not comfortable for us.
absolutely. No. And that's why things such as stage hypnosis are funny, but also like terrifying a little because it feels like we
Yeah.
give our control away. But there is almost like three techniques the stage hypnotist will do to get you really engaged and to have you like want to experience that. You've got to put your hand up. Have you noticed how they will
Yeah.
ask for volunteers? So you already agreeing to something like, oh my gosh, I want to experience that. They will then have a few people together, and between them they will like choose another person for a different technique. Like there is different techniques how they are able to tell who is gonna be really open to it, who wants to have fun, who wants to do this thing. It's never against their will. Like nobody is ever being forced to do anything. And the same happens in a therapeutic environment. You want to shift, you want to improve something. But what's really important is that you trust that person in front of you. So you've got trust with this therapist, right? And in the same way, a stage hypnotist will build a rapport with the people in front of them. So again, you want to feel like you trust that person. You also want to understand hypnosis. It's really important for me to break it down for people, make sure they feel safe, because if you're not feeling safe, you will not lean back fully. You might not open up fully. You might be like questioning it. You might not be following along if you don't feel like this is safe for you. And of course, there is cases when hypnosis should not be used. If someone is suffering from certain types of psychotic disorders, if someone is having hallucinations, right, hypnosis is not the right approach for many psychotic disorders.
But otherwise, everyone would be a good candidate.
Yeah, in most cases, people will be a good candidate for hypnosis.
Do people sometimes give you the feedback that they feel like they're making things up in the hypnotherapy session?
Yeah, and I celebrate them for it, because it should feel like it. Like I feel sometimes people make it sound like, oh, it's like a magical download that happens, but we imagine everything, don't we? Even those magical downloads, and your imagination is powerful, because the subconscious mind can't really tell the difference between what's imagined and what's actually happening right in front of you. And this is why a made-up scenario in our head about this upcoming meeting next week creates that stress response in your body. The same way as if you were there right now.
Yes, right. Exactly. Okay, I never thought of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Because somebody's done hypnosis on me once, doing a past life regression, and that's how I felt. I felt like I was just making everything up, and it made me question everything.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying. It doesn't matter, because it produces the same internal response.
Absolutely. And especially with many regressions, like often the goal, and I'm not saying always, but often the goal will be to make peace with something, or to be able to distance yourself, or have closure we did not have, or have an understanding we did not have. Like, oh my gosh, I see where it's coming from. Oh yeah, I can see why I've been this way. It is about making peace in one way or another. And then, I mean, in general, with past lives, which is not something I specialize on personally. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that's not the right approach, but it's not something I personally choose to specialize on. In general, regression is not something I usually lead with, although I do use regression in some ways. Then it probably feels a little like you are imagining things, especially at the beginning. And then you start trusting yourself a lot more. And you stop questioning it. And it's totally okay to overthink it at times, but still have that knowledge that like it's making a difference, right? Even if my logical mind is still having doubts, which is common in any therapy. And I often see it even when client has like a big breakthrough. I say at the beginning of my career, I had this client who really struggled with binge eating and overeating at night, and she had quite a few unhealthy habits. We did 2 hypnotic sessions, and she dropped it completely. So that was quite a quick shift. And that's why I like working with people long term, because a week later she started questioning it. Could it be this easy? What if I just imagined it works?
Yeah.
And all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden she had like this crisis for a couple of days, like, oh my gosh, this is not gonna last. I know it. And that's why it's good to have someone in your corner who will help you overcome
Yeah.
this. So
Yeah.
you don't sabotage your own success.
Yeah. That makes sense. So when some people focus on the past and some people focus on the present future, when somebody's going into training to be a hypnotherapist, are they trained in one specific modality? Are they trained in both? Like, how would somebody know if I was going to go to a hypnotherapist for something? How would I know that I'm choosing the right person, that they're trained in the right way, or what questions would I need to ask?
So in most cases, people might have it on their website, and they might even share what sort of approach they have. I I studied hypnosis in quite a holistic way. So I have learned about a lot of different techniques, a lot of different approaches, and it took me a year to just take classes and another year to do all of my case studies. These days, you will see that there are courses, hypnotherapy courses that are like super short. And then in that case, it's like it must be just maybe one technique. It might be one approach, one school of thought maybe that they are covering, or it might be maybe just focusing on, let's say, overeating, or it might be just regression or past life regression. So it really is about doing your research and asking questions. I personally feel like I don't identify with just like one approach or one technique. I was very lucky to have a very comprehensive and holistic course I took, and my teacher did share with us so many different ways of how you can approach hypnosis. I would say maybe I have been a lot more influenced by cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy, just because I do find it very empowering. But then there is
Yeah.
also other school of thoughts, other teachers, and founders of different approaches that I have studied from and learned. And it really is also up to me and up to other hypnotherapists to see what will be the right approach here with a particular client, what it is that they need, what's currently happening for them. So if you are looking for a therapist, hypnotherapist, it's not on their website, have a word with them. Just send them a message, send them an email, and ask, this is what you are struggling with, this is where you would like to be, this is what you're looking at achieving. Is this something they specialize on as well? Is it something they cover? Because you will find hypnotherapists that focus only on smoking, stop smoking therapy. You might have ones that focus on overeating or food related things. There will be some that focus on pain management, whether it's chronic pain or whether it's like acute pain in terms of going into surgery with no anesthetics, or fear of dentists kind of a thing. It's interesting, like these days you can even find a dentist who is also a hypnotherapist, and instead of anesthetics they will guide you into hypnosis.
That's cool.
Which I find is brilliant. It's so interesting. Yeah, so it depends on what you're looking for. And you can also do your own research. And if you want to become a hypnotherapist, definitely do your research well, so you know exactly what you are signing up for.
Yeah. Wow, great. This is amazing. I didn't realize how many misconceptions I had until we spoke. And I did. I thought that somebody could talk me into doing something that I didn't want to do. I thought maybe I would be that 10% or whatever that wouldn't be able to be hypnotized, where you're saying like everyone can. There's so many misconceptions I had. So I really appreciate this conversation and busting some of those myths and explaining it in such a clear way. I love the way that you've described it and the examples that you've given. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm glad it all made sense, because I know some of those concepts can sound quite difficult or complex or easy, or difficult to get your head around, but hopefully I was able to break it down for you and
Yeah.
for your wonderful listeners.
Yeah. How do people reach you, and what are some of the things that you offer, and how can people connect with you?
Yes, so if there was anything that resonated, feel free to message me, or if actually you have more questions, like I'm always open to having a conversation, whether you send me a message on Facebook or Instagram or send me an email. I feel like the best place to connect with me might be my website, just going directly to my website. Which is hypnocoaching.me.
Hmm.
And that's where you can find my links for Facebook and Instagram. I hang out quite a lot on social media. That's where I connect with other people. That's where clients find me the most as well. And with my own work, my journey started somewhere completely different. It was more anxiety, confidence, self-esteem. Now I focus on actually helping people get to the next level in terms of their own self-sabotage, unable to follow through, complete things, procrastination. So a lot of my clients are ambitious people, or they have their own businesses, or they are creatives and they want someone in their corner. They want to work with their subconscious mind, but also have coaching and have support, because the other aspect I focus on a lot is emotional intelligence for leaders, for business owners, for ambitious people who want to be their most empowered self. And you know that actual emotions are everything. Even when we think we're making a logical decision, it's your emotions. That's
Hmm.
why you are overthinking it, you know? So that's maybe driven by a fear. So I really help people to break through those glass ceilings, take things to the next level, open up their creativity, and uncover their blocks and break through them.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you, Stepanka. I really appreciate you and your time and your clarity on this topic. It was really lovely to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for having such incredible questions. Honestly, it doesn't happen very often that someone would
Oh,
like to go this deep and has such great questions that, you know, make me think and make me explain things in a new way. So thank you very much.
oh, thank you. Thank you for listening to the Connected Community Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. I can be found at www.nickyyoga.com, NICKYYYOGA.com. Until I see you again next week, I hope you have a beautiful day.